Well, hello everybody. This is Margaret and welcome to another episode of Boboleros, where we talk about primarily knitting, but also inspiration from the world of the fine arts and random drippings from the brain pan. So welcome. I hope that you are having a fantastic start to February. We have Valentine's Day coming up. And so on this episode, I have not a Valentine's knit actually, but I do have a finished object, a couple of works in progress to share with you, some fabulous news about an upcoming KAL that I am co-hosting with the wonderful Leslie Friend from A Friend to Knit With and Gina from Skein Cocaine, and that's starting up in March. I cannot wait to tell you all about it. And some also random drippings from the brain pan, including a movie pick and some other things. So welcome, grab a cup of something and let's get started. I'd like to just start off by mentioning that last week, if you didn't catch the episode, I interviewed one of my dear friends, Diana Rojas, who is an author, and her new book called Litany of Saints is about to be released this spring. So she came on the show and we had a knit and chat. Favorite book, if you had to choose one?
Willa Cather's Maia Antonia.
Favorite place you have ever visited?
Oh, easy. Paraty, Brazil.
Do you have a favorite quote?
Mediocrity is underrated.
What's your favorite thing to shop for?
Ooh, shoes.
Shoes. You're a shoe
I'm
gal.
so
Shoe gal.
Yeah.
Favorite color?
Yellow.
Since we were both playing classical music, favorite composer?
I'm gonna say Bach, which might sound trite, but that's where I know. That's where I stopped playing.
If you weren't a writer, what would you be?
Landscape architect.
Okay. Last meal, if you had to have it, what would you?
Easy. White rice.
Okay.
Fried egg and tomato. That's my desert island meal.
What?
Yes. Along with the peasant feet, I have peasant taste in food.
And she told us about her book and the inspiration behind it. We went down all sorts of rabbit holes. But in the midst of all that, I did choose a giveaway winner for the prize, which was a kit for the Wild Orchid Barbie bubble wrap. And so that person is Michelle Sabatini 5288. So Michelle, if you didn't know that you won, please contact me at info@thegrandmanor.com. If I don't hear from Michelle, then I will have to do another drawing, which will happen next week. So Michelle, if you get this message, I'll try to post it on Instagram as well, then please get in contact with me. All right, so speaking of last week's episode, I didn't talk about the segment called Flash Your Bobos, which is when a viewer completes a project using Boboleros yarn or one of my patterns, and I just like to celebrate that finished object. And so Diana Rojas, when she came on the show 1 week ago today, she did not know how to knit. I mean, we were literally casting on and learning how to cast on, and she had actually, I think she did know a little bit, like she was getting the hang of the knit stitch. But just to say that in this last week, Diana did like unbelievable, an unbelievable thing. She beautifully completed her first project, which is the classic scarf. It's a kit and pattern that I have on my website, and so what I did to celebrate my friend's book, I thought of a color that sort of resonated when I read the book And since the book to me felt very earthy, it felt very much about family, bloodlines, and the things that connect us, I wanted to respond to the beauty of this book by dyeing a colorway that reflected my feelings about it. And so I dyed up a color just for her and called it Litany of Saints. It's like a dark red maroon color. And so last week Diana was knitting with it on the show, and this morning I got the most glorious news, a picture of her wearing her completed object. So Diana, flash those Bobos. You did an amazing Boboleros knit, and I thank you for letting me share in that incredible journey with you. And it's a celebration of creativity. It's a celebration for all of us of fulfilling dreams and doing things, as she said on the podcast, not to be useful, but just for the joy. And isn't that a load off the expectation bandwagon? Yes. Okay, let's get started with the knitting content. Okay, this scarf, I am so in love. I'm so in love with this scarf. I cannot even tell you. So you might have seen this last week. I was showing you this scarf. It was still kind of in its tadpole stages, and I just kept going with it and going, and I finished it 2 days ago. And let me tell you about this. This is called, it's a pattern by Pam Powers Knits, who also is, I think, either distributor or, I don't know, she's involved with Ikigai Fibers, which is the yarn used for this project. And so I met Pam at Vogue Knitting Live 2 weeks ago. I can't believe it was only 2 weeks ago. I also met Amy Opie, who was at her booth and didn't even realize I was meeting her, and I just absolutely adore her designs. And so that was really just such a serendipitous meeting that released so much inspiration. So when I saw that there was a kit available for this scarf, I just jumped on it because Pam was wearing it and she just looks so gorgeous. And that scarf just kind of hung, you know, so chic over her neck, and it just like spoke volumes. So today I'm wearing just basic black because I wanted this to be the center of everything. So I'm just wearing it over a complete black ensemble, which I don't usually wear, a complete black, but I just want to celebrate these colors. So this is Ikigai Fibers, and it uses 5 colors. And so those colors are oatmeal, razzle, it's, I think it's called chai latte. The yellow is like, oh my goodness, do I remember? Buttercup? I think it's called Buttercup. And the black is onyx. And anyway, the kits are available on pampowers.com. No, pampowersknits.com. And so what intrigued me about this project is that well, first of all, really the thing that had me at hello was Razzle, this kind of fluorescent orangey pink. It's a color, it's really hard to describe. It's kind of like a salmon that's fluorescent. And I have hardly seen a color like this out there. I don't know, it's so unique. And the way it plays against the neutral colors, it just pops. I think it's just absolutely genius the way that these colors were arranged by Pam. They just sing so well together. And the kit came with just enough yarn. In fact, I might still have my scraps, but I don't think I do because there was hardly anything left. So it was one of those projects where you say, wow, that was just enough yarn. Not, you know, not that you were running out, but it was just enough so you don't have like a million scraps. You know, guys, my pet peeve with having like too much like scrap yarn from projects, like little little bits and bobs hanging around. Okay, so let me describe this knit and take it off for you. And it's funny, I was just watching Leslie Friend's podcast, and she also completed, and we were like totally simpatico. I didn't realize she was knitting a super long scarf, and here I am also somehow have knitted a super long scarf, and I just love the additional length. Like, woo, pate. Now, styling options for this. I loved Leslie's idea from her podcast. The idea, okay, so I'm going to show her inspiration, and then I'll show you a technique I learned like in my 20s. Okay, so like Leslie's way of tying the skirt was like take half in front and the other half in front. So like you have this part here, and if I recall, you take one piece, the right piece, and you like make a loop out of it, and then you take the other side and you put it through, and then you kind of like zhuzh it. I love that. I think it's just so cool. I also love the tassels here, and I'll talk to you more about that in a second. There's a clear right side and wrong side, so it has to be sort of played with in this knit, but if I could see, that's the wrong side. Okay, this is the right side. So playing around with it, zhuzhing it up. I have it with like a kind of blazer jacket. Oh, I'm in love. What can I say? I'm in love. Okay, here's the other way that I like to tie scarves. So I take it and I fold it in half. Okay, so it's in half. And then I put it over my shoulders so that the fold is to my right. I open it up, I put my hand in, I grab the two other ends, and I simply pull them through. And I think that's another really cute look for this, because you can just, play with it and have it dangling down. Or just like have the whole thing like just open and fancy free and just go. So I'm a little hyper because I'm so excited, first of all, to finally have a project done in 2024. I kind of was in a little bit of a holding pattern. I don't know. I didn't have my mojo. I really didn't. The first couple weeks of January, I was like, what is wrong with me? I haven't been knitting. I just was kind of like out. I don't know what was up. And so the same thing happened to me last year. Like when Maia and I, my daughter, we were talking about going to Vogue Knitting Live, which also was, I think, like end of January last year. It was kind of like, okay, we're both in a little bit of a slump. VKL is totally going to revive us, and it did. It did. It just like, boom, now we're knitting again. So anyway, this knit, what made it really interesting was that it was knit on the long side. So you kind of, you start like here, the starting point was with the black, and you start at the beginning, and you have like a super long, like I had a 60-inch cable and a size 10 I used, and I just kept knitting. So 200 stitches down, and then the pattern starts. And again, it's just a simple pattern, but it just comes out so super cool. It involves like a little bit sort of like the bubble stitch where you knit into a stitch below, but like in the bubble stitch you knit 4 down. This one you just knit 1 stitch below, and then the next one is a purl. So it's like knit 1 stitch below, purl. So it's a nice syncopated pattern, which gives you this effect when you change colors. And Pam provided her exact chart, which made it easy to follow. The instructions are based on a Purl Soho pattern, which is called the Incredible Blanket. And I mean, truly, can you imagine this in a blanket? How amazing that would be. Oh, yeah, it's so beautiful. So a note about the finishing and the ends. So what makes this different than the blanket pattern is that at the beginning of each row, you have to leave a strand at least 12 inches before you start in pattern. And the first 3 stitches are, either going to be slip depending on where you are in the pattern, or it's going to be a knit, slip, knit, or something of that nature. And so what it does, it kind of like, as you go along, as you're in the midst of the scarf, you're going to feel that your end pieces are very loose. And don't be afraid, that's supposed to happen. I was a little afraid because I was like, oh my gosh, is this coming undone? Is this unraveling? I wish in retrospect that I had the courage to just continue and not freak, because I would have been in better shape with my ends. But as it were, when I came to finish off the end, and Pam also has good instructions how to do the finishing, a video that's now up about it, which, it makes it easy. But like, because I had tampered with the ends and like tried to crochet them in a wonky fashion, and that was like my own like form of, just trying to troubleshoot along the way, and I should just have left it and had the confidence to know it will all work out at the end, as most things in life do. But I didn't. I tampered, and so as a result, my ends are a little bit, it's not as great as I would have liked, but it's not bad. It's not bad. It's supposed to have like a nice I-cord situation going down, and I mean, I don't mind. I'm not really a perfectionist. I had a talk with my friend Eleanor the other day about like perfectionism in knitting, and like what we could live with and what we cannot live with. I decided I could live with this. Like, this side is better, and I really like it. At the end, those so in the beginning of each row and at the end of each row, you leave a 12-inch tail, which at the end, so smartly, Pam, you are a genius. It so smartly just gets integrated to make this phenomenal tassel. What can I say? I'm not even a scarf person. Like, I didn't think I was until I knit this. And now it's all I want to do is just wear this scarf. I love it so much. I just can't get enough of this scarf. It's the coolest thing ever. I intend, now that I've got this bug, I'm going to talk to you another thing that is inspiring me with this. So, onwards. Okay, I am using way too many terms from the movie that I just saw. Like, too many like little things from this movie. It's like become a part of my DNA now. I've seen it twice. I'm going to talk all about it, and but that's at the end. So let's move on to a work in progress. So the minute I finished this, I was really excited to get started on my new sweater, which I talked about a little bit last week, and it's the Georgiana sweater by Amy Opie. I love her she's incredible. She's a bright light. She's so beautiful and just effervescent and joyous, and meeting her was such a thrill. So I also was inspired subliminally. I put this painting here. Like, if you notice, I didn't have this set up before. And if you could see this room, it's my basement. And this is the place where I teach piano, and it's like my YouTube studio for my piano channel. So it's like, it was a very different look as of 3 weeks ago. And it had like rugs all over. It was kind of like, I wanted to make it look like a Moroccan kind of Casbah. So I had all these rugs, like these oriental rugs everywhere. So they were all area rugs. And I loved that idea of like overlapping rugs. But as a result, it was rather dark because these rugs were all like really dark burgundies and stuff that my husband brought into the marriage like almost 25 years ago. And I mean, they're great, but dark. And I don't know, like, it was really hard to integrate them in. So I just put them all over, and I thought it was great. For several years it was like that. And it matched kind of like like ambiance of the space. And if I find this picture, I'll try to insert it here. This is not a huge room, yet I had 3 pianos in this room. Yeah. And at one point I said one of these pianos just is like, I have one too many pianos down here. Although I say you can never have too many pianos. That's the Liberace in me. Like, more pianos, the better. I'm like a piano hoarder. If I could find a piano, I'm just going to grab it. Not an upright, a grand. Preferably from the 1800s. So, anyway, long story short, one of the pianos, I decided to just store it. I love it. It's an incredible piano. One day I'll tell you the story about that piano. Every piano has a story. Every piano has a personality. And she is a stunning example of the French school of piano making from 1878. And she's glorious, but I needed the space. So anyway, she's happy. She's in storage. And so now I had this open space, and I was like, oh yeah, so I could bring a couch in. I could almost make it look like an actual home in the basement, like with a couch and with a coffee table and stuff that makes it look more like a house. So anyway, long story short, I brought this like little sitting couch thing, and I said, oh, let me decorate a little bit. And so I have this gorgeous painting. And this is a painting by a fellow knitter. Amazing person. Talk about her story and her faith is so incredible. And her name is Dawn McFay, and she paints glorious florals, and they're so happy. And just reading her story, and she went through some real difficult things in life, and her faith and her joy and thankfulness and gratitude to God is incredible and so inspiring. And I wanted to have that energy in this room. And so I was so blessed to purchase one of her paintings, and it is so happy. And there is so much life inside these flowers. There's like even the twinkle of the inside of the flower. It's almost like an eye, like a dazzling, like a glimmer of an eye, like when the eye just has that spark. Like these flowers have this spark inside. Anyway, I absolutely adore these flowers. And so when I was thinking about colors for the Georgiana sweater, which is a 3-color colorwork sweater. I haven't done colorwork sweaters, first of all, in a long time. So I was so happy to get back into that. So let me show you the colors I dyed up. And, after I dyed these, I was like, what does this remind me of? And I realized they remind me of the painting. So I haven't named them yet, but I was like thinking, this reminds me of something very Wagner, like I might call it Valkyrie or something, because it's like a deep green blue, and it's rather stately. And anyway, it's a mysterious color, and I love it. So that is one of the ColorWorks contrasting colors. This is the main body of the sweater. It's I would say a celadon green color, a celery type celadon. I was so interested in this color. I love it, especially since it's the first green of spring, and spring is a comin'. Spring is a comin'. And then I wanted a pop, and for the pop, I just went with a real pink pop. So I cast on, oh my gosh, I have to tell you what happened to me. Oh my gosh. So it's Thursday. I cast on. I started watching this show, Truman and the Swans, on Hulu. Have you guys started watching that? I'm like very obsessed with that era and clothes. And so as I'm watching it, I'm like, yeah, I'm doing the cast on for the collar, and I'm knitting along and knitting along. And here's the thing, I have a set of Chiago interchangeables, and that's my go-to. That is my go-to. But when you have a daughter who also knits, then how can I put this gently? There's a lot of commingling going on, even though said daughter has her own needles. There's like commingling where, you know, she goes into my set, she takes what she needs, she doesn't put it back. I'm like, where's the stuff? Where's my small cable? I could not find my small cable. And so I needed to cast on with 5s, and there's no small cable. And I am like hunting high and low for a small cable. I have a gazillion old needles that I don't use anymore. I started going into like, you know, that I couldn't find any that were like the right length, and it started to really bother me big time. So there is another set that I have, an interchangeable set, and I'm not going to say what brand it is, but the cables for that are the wonkiest things. Guys, if there's one thing that drives me crazy, and I'm sure for many of us it's the same thing, are those janky, weird cables that like, oh, like they flip out, they like do their own little, you know, like momentons, like mimes, like they go into their own positions and they stay inflexible and they stay janky and weird and arrested in these weird positions. And so this was my experience with this cable, right? So, but I'm like, la, 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 la. I'm knitting because I'm watching the, you know, the swans. And I'm so into the clothes. I'm like, oh, I love the hair and the makeup. And like, I'm like so entranced. I just keep knitting and knitting. It didn't dawn on me until about like a good hour into my cast on that I did the unthinkable, that I did the rookie mistake, that I've been knitting for over 25 years. And Margaret, did you actually do this? Did you actually twist your stitches? And the answer is yes. I created a dang Mobius strip out of my cast on. Do you believe this? I mean, who does that? Like, why? I'm blaming it on the cables, although I really should not. I mean, look, you see what I mean? The Mobius strip. What could this be? I'm making it into a cool neck. Ooh, my bracelet is so good. Anyway, I had to start again. If you notice, I started with the pink because my idea was to do like a fold over collar. I just said, forget about it. I'm just going to do a regular. So here it is. Here's the beginnings of my sweater. What do you think? I am on row, I think, 10 of my color work. And here's it so far. So the collar, let me just say, I decided to go with a knit one, purl one rib. My new thing with the cast on, a la Debbie Korb, who I asked her about her cast on because she's such a grand knitter of such spectacular excellence. And she said tubular cast on is her go-to. If I'm not mistaken, Debbie, I'm sorry if I didn't remember correctly. I think you said tubular. In any case, I did the tubular cast on. I always use Jackie Rose's instructions for that on Caddy Jacks. I find them to be, I must have watched that video 500 million times in my lifetime so far. I use it all the time. And I find it very helpful and very straightforward. It is a bit more work, but it provides this nice, I don't want the lighting to be all weird here, sorry. But it provides this nice finish, you see, where it kind of like rolls over. So it's not just this line. And I like that. It's very polished. And that's what I want to add to my sweater knitting life, is just a little bit more attention to the details of the cast on bind off sleeves, body, neckline. And so anyway, once I did the tubular, which is, you know, I even didn't have a smaller needle. I just did it on the 5s, which is what I used for the whole collar, knit one, purl one, and then I was off to the races with the color work section. And so far I've got this. I did have a little bit, like a tiny bit of a, you know, like existential crisis with my color choices, and I had to call Maia and ask her, like, do you think this is too Christmas color? And she said no. So, you know, it's always hard to predict, you know, like how it's going to look knit up, because you have so little evidence to suggest that it's going to be great, right? Like, so you just have to have faith that it's going to look good. And I think it's going to look good. I just was a little worried that it's like with the greens and then the like hot pink that it might have a little bit too much Christmassy vibe, but I don't think it will. I don't think it will at the end. What do you think? Say no. Say no. Even if you think yes. Because I don't want to rip back. Anyway, this is really a beautifully written pattern. I have to say, so far I've been finding it just so well written, easy, and I like, there's many size options. It's super good. This is on my own hand dyed worsted base, and it's really nice. It's really nice. I do think I'm a little under the gauge, which is fine with me because the pattern says that it has like 2 to 3 inches of positive ease, and I don't mind it being a little bit more fitted. So I'm just going with it. I'm going with it, and it is on, and it is, you know, on its way. On its way. So yay. Okay, onwards. Next project. Work in progress. I have not touched this in many weeks. This is my fancy sweater by Lamb & Kid, using Lamb & Kid's Big Birdie in the Jolly Green colorway. And I did put a little touch of mohair in this really very special color. No, I'm sorry that I can't get this. Okay. Meeps. I had extra Meeps mohair lying around. So it's a kind of grayish, Earl Grey, kind of purplish lavender shade, which I thought would be so nice to kind of peek through this green. So this is it so far. I haven't gotten really far, but I have split for sleeves, and this is the fancy sweater if I didn't mention it before. What can I say? I really want to finish it because I love this green. I think this green is super, but I just am now busy with the other color work and everything. But yeah, you know, now that I look at it, because I haven't even taken it out for a spin, I'm like, ooh, I like you. Have we met? How do you do? It's nice to see you again. I really like it. So I think I should move on. I should continue on. So there's nothing much to be said about this other than it's a very great, you know, like I would say straightforward kind of sweater. No, you know, incredible color work going on here. It's just going to be a stockinette little party to the end, some ribbing, and then sleeves. So nothing much, but it's so cozy. I love the Big Birdie. I really do. It's an unbelievable fabric that it creates, and especially this I think is on 10s. I love Big Birdie on either 10.5s or 10s. There's like a sweet spot I find that really intrigues me with certain yarn bases and a certain needle size, and it's like a Goldilocks situation. And I found after making a couple of Big Birdie fancy sweaters that I really like the 10.5 and Big Birdie marriage. Yeah, that is really cool. All right, so that's it for works in progress. Now, moving on to the knit along. What? Yeah, knit along. Okay, so this is the knit along. Some of the idea of the knit along. Let me first say it's called the Dart along. And so what it is a knit along where we will all, you're invited to knit the Dartmore sweater by Kadri with us. And so this KAL is a Dart along, and it's going to be with myself, Leslie Friend, and also Gina from Skin Cocaine. All three of us, we just had the best time together at Cakepalooza in October, and we actually got yarn to all make the Dartmore, and we've been holding off on it, and we've been waiting for the right time to start this knit along, and we decided March is the kickoff. So March 1st till May 1st. So 2 months. The Dartmore is a very straightforward pattern in the sense that it is, it's got some really interesting detail work, but on the whole, it's mostly a stockinette sweater. And so, anyway, I just want to say that when we were at Cakepalooza, Gina and Leslie and I, we all went to the Forever Yarn booth, and we got yarn for the Dartmore. So back then, which October now feels like, well, it's 4 months ago. It was a different time, right? A different vibe in October. So I was feeling this vibe. So this is the Wensley worsted base by La Bien-Aimée, and I also got this mohair silk by La Bien-Aimée in the colorway Lush, with the idea to hold one strand of each together to knit the sweater, the Dartmore. But now, I don't know. Now I have other ideas, especially having knit this. Now I have a little bit of different leaning with my color choices. So I think I'm going to be changing my yarn choice and doing something a little bit different with my Dartmore. So I'll, stay tuned. I'm still sort of figuring it out in my head, but I have an idea. And so, yeah, I'm excited to share and to knit along with you guys. So basically choose whatever yarn. It's a worsted weight. It calls for worsted weight. So if you don't have worsted weight, you can use DK weight, and perhaps with a lace weight. So double stranded is one option. Maybe change your needle size. I'm going to be trying to see like what kind of yarn concoction I could come up with and get gauge. So anyway, yeah, and so right now, since we still have like about 3 weeks before we officially kick off, if you'd like to share any of your yarn ideas, inspiration, maybe you might want to start gauge swatching so that March 1st we can all start together, then please do so using the hashtag Dartalong, and please also tag us in that, because all three of us just would love to see what yarn choices you have. And I think that we'll have I know we're going to have a Ravelry group page set up for the knit along, and yeah, it'll be so much fun. And then at the end there'll be prizes and some surprises along the way, so it's just going to be really fun. I think it's so great to knit in community, and the community for this knitting world is really unbeatable. It's the most warm, inspiring. I get so many incredible ideas from you guys. You share, like if I have a problem with knitting or I need something, you guys just give so much advice. You've shared great ideas, like for instance from Vogue Knitting Live, I spotted somebody wearing this colorwork sweater with bees on it, and I was just on a mission to figure out what it was, and thanks to you all, you helped me find it. And so I'm so grateful. And it's things like that. It's also even things beyond, like I shared with you in November that my dear friend was in the hospital and had, it was just like a freak thing that happened to him on a routine surgery. It was kind of an elective surgery, and while he was there was an accident, and so he ended up nearly dying, and it was a very difficult time and touch and go. But I am so grateful for your positive thoughts and prayers and well wishes for my friend, because I just found out yesterday that, and he's now at home, has been for nearly a month, and the doctor gave him the clean bill of health, which seemed, back in November, 3 months ago only, it seemed like, will he ever be able to return to living a normal life? And here he is 3 months later, and it's a normal life. And so, oh my gosh, incredible. So thank you so much. I believe that a rising tide lifts all ships, and it's our collective thoughts and our collective hearts, and we are all knit together. Maybe that's one of the beauties of this craft is, it helps us to integrate with ourselves and with each other. So thank you for that. And so this is one of the things that makes the knit along so special for me, is to connect with you all on a deeper level with our shared creativity. So I'm so excited. So please join us. Okay, and so now drippings from the brain pan segment. So I don't go to the movies very often. I don't know. I never seem to, like, I've become a bit of a hermit. I think. I don't know. Since COVID, I'm like, oh yeah, I'll just stay home. I got so used to staying home. But okay, that's another story. Anyway, I met the most incredible person, a violinist, a concert violinist, and we just like completely connected. And so now we're talking about doing some concerts using the classical music that we have been trained in for different wellness and mindfulness, and just to kind of like add a bit of, I don't know, like integrate wellness into it, and yeah, use it for humanity rather than just in upper crust halls and, Carnegie Hall, and they're wonderful and everything, but there is a certain protocol. And I like the idea of in the 1800s that they had more intimate soiree concerts in homes and intimate places where people talked about things that inspired them: poetry, literature, art, painting. And it was a way to get together and exchange and connect. And I feel like, after talking with many people, I think that especially in a post-COVID world, that there is that element of connection that seems to be missing for so many of us. And so she and I got together and started thinking about the beautiful music, and started thinking about how can we use this to connect people and connect hearts and connect to healing vibrations. And so that is kind of the idea behind it. And so as we get a little bit more clear about the details, then I'll be sharing it. But in any case, she invited me to go with her last week to New York City to see a screening of the movie Naiad. And oh my goodness, it was down in Chelsea in New York City. And oh my goodness, that was really a phenomenal movie. So it's on Netflix, and I think it's an Oscar contender. And the main character is played by Annette Bening, and the supporting actress is Jodie Foster. And it's just an incredible cast. It's an incredible story. It's so inspiring. And it's a true life story of Olympic swimmer Diane Naiad. And she attempted at age 28 to swim from Cuba to Florida. It's over 100-mile swim. It takes at least 50 hours to do that. And it's a very, very turbulent situation in the ocean there. It's unlike any other place in the world because the current is very changeable. It's intense. They have a great many sharks there, and they have a bunch of also deadly jellyfish and all sorts of sea creatures there that could potentially kill a swimmer in the open ocean, not to mention the crew. So anyway, at age 28, Diane Naiad in the 70s attempted this swim and got about halfway in and stopped. And I think since then people have attempted it and failed. And so the movie starts with Diane turning 60 and kind of thinking, well, is this it? Like, should I just kind of live out the rest of my life kind of in a safe way, or should I still keep my dream alive? And she still have that dream to swim from Cuba to Florida. So I'm not going to give away the story, just to say that it is a fabulous movie. I'm watching it for the second time because my husband didn't see it. And so I like it just as much, if not better, the second time. So, and I'm just as riveted. So that says something about a movie, I think. And both, like the acting is just absolutely amazing. One of the exciting things in that screening that I went to last week was that Annette Bening actually came out to answer questions. And so she was being interviewed by the actress Kathleen Turner.
I'm older than her, but forget it. Broken ankle or not. Anyway, so I guess what I want to start with is, how the hell did you train for this?
Okay, thank you. First of all, I want to start with thank you, Kathleen. What an honor to have you ask me questions. I'm so grateful. Thank you.
You're most welcome.
Okay, well, I wanted to say that. The training was really a great challenge. It's a wonderful thing to have a challenge. It's a wonderful thing to commit to something that takes some. I was convinced the minute I read the screenplay that I had to play the part because it's such an amazing woman, and I'd certainly never read anything like it or imagined in a million years that I would do anything like it.
It doesn't seem probable, does it?
No, it doesn't. So that when I read it, I thought, oh, of course I have to do this.
Oh, wow.
And then later thought, wait a minute, the swimming, I have to figure that out. So then I just, I hired a wonderful Olympic swimmer, Rita Owen, who was my coach.
So we were sitting like right in front. And so to be so close to, the actor that played this character, there's something really quite magical about that. And to hear about the process of training for this role and interviewing Diane, the actual swimmer, and the actual coach Bonnie, and it just was so cool. It was a fabulous movie. So So yeah, so I highly recommend that movie. And yeah, so that was a big highlight for me. And yeah, what else? I'm getting ready to record some music of Bach. And Bach is one of my first loves. And just like a short story I'll share about J.S. Bach. I wrote a book about him called Soli Deo Gloria, an anthem of faith, because the composer J.S. Bach was born in 1685 and he died in 1750. And his story is quite amazing. He was born into a family of musicians and he was orphaned by the age 10. So he had to go live with his older brother, and he was trained in music but mostly self-taught. So there's a story about Bach while he was living in his brother's house, who was an organist. He would go and he would like sneak out, and he would go into the cupboard where the brother kept his musical scores. And like musical scores in that time, they were very hard to get. There weren't many copies of them, and so it was really something quite sacred and precious. And so he would take a copy of whatever score he could get his hands on, and he would spend the rest of the night by candlelight copying. And so just that art of copying a masterwork and learning through that act was one of the ways that Bach learned the incredible craft of composition and counterpoint. He became just the greatest master of counterpoint, which is the art of weaving, just like we do when we knit. We weave, especially in color work, we weave multiple strands. Well, it's the art of weaving melodies together so that they all harmonize, so that they all dance together, so that they all have independence and yet work as a whole, you know. So anyway, I was intrigued by his faith because he didn't want to take credit for any of his achievements, and his achievements are so great and so beyond measure that I once heard a quote that said, if there was one thing that we can blast off into the outer space and like have some other life forms find it as a testimony of like human achievement on Earth, what would be that one thing? And one astronaut replied to that question that he would send up the complete works of J.S. Bach, but then he added, but that would be boasting. So anyway, the music of Bach is music that is kind of like looking up at the aurora borealis and like being dazzled every single time. So I started learning a great piece of music called the English Suite in A minor. I started learning it in November, which coincided with my friend Mark's hospitalization. Well, now that he's back, and to celebrate him healing and to celebrate faith and to thank God for that, we are collaborating next month. He is a great recording engineer. We've worked on many projects together, and he also prepares the pianos. He tunes, he gets them into like the most incredible condition, and he has such beautiful pianos. And so we will be collaborating on this recording. So I'll be sharing some of that for sure on my Instagram, on my Margaret Wasik, which is my piano Instagram. And yeah, and also I have another thing coming up, which is more, if you're interested in, there's a lot being talked about these days about sound healing and frequencies, and I've taken kind of a interesting journey into the world of tuning, which is, speaking of Bach, he would tune his instruments, which is kind of more important than it seems for me, because it meant something. Like those ratios between the notes, he was very particular and left some cryptic clues about it, for generations to kind of unlock, like, what is this mystery of tuning and why is that important? Personally, I've started to take the journey to tune my own piano, and I've been finding that the way the energy of the notes, the intervals, affects us is profound. And even the slightest differential between the two has an energetic effect. Either it rouses us up, makes, like there's some intervals that, like, for sure, they are so intense and they give you a burst of energy. And then there's others that, like, make you exhale, relax, and just working within those parameters and tweaking a little bit more, a little less, and so difficult to do from a mechanical standpoint, like to have the piano hold these energies and hold the tuning and to do it right, like just the physicality of how to manipulate the pins of the piano with the tuning hammer is something that I'm kind of like learning as I go through trial and error, and kind of, taking the journey. And it's a little bit scary because it's not like I have a teacher next to me, but then I have the piano next to me, and I'm just kind of going on the feedback that the piano is giving me. Occasionally I'll measure using a software I have to make sure that I'm in the ballpark, and then I'm kind of like on my own. So it's an interesting journey, to say the least. So in any case, just to say that a lot of times when I'm like really close to tuning a note and it's almost there in tune, you could hear that there's still a little bit of friction, but like the whole idea between, like, when you tune one note which has 3 strings, the idea is that you have to tune all the 3 strings so they're exactly in tune with each other. And you can hear it when one or more is out. Like they kind of, you hear what we call beats. It goes like rah, 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 like meowing. You can hear that. And even if it's like a subtle meow, now you get into like, the fine tuning, which is hard. So anyway, it reminds me of color, and it reminds me of shades, and it reminds me of like when even dyeing yarn, like trying to match more than one like batch in a shade, which is very difficult to do. It's very much like tuning the strings together and getting so close to the same shade. So it's fascinating that we live in this marvelous, playground of vibration, whether it's color, whether it's sound, and this idea of cardionosis, which I've been like watching a lot of different YouTubes about that, like heart coherence, mind, heart, and body coherence, how it's the same principle of just harmonizing those waves inside of us. So anyway, that is a deep, deep brain dripping into the world of, sometimes I go into my crazy world, so I apologize. Anyway, thank you so much for joining today. I look forward to seeing you on the next podcast. Again, please join the knit along, the Dart along, starting March 1st. We'll be knitting the Dartmore sweater by Kydri and swatching anytime until March, or even beyond March, just any worsted weight or something that gives you gauge. I wanted to say gauge. Your favorite colors, your favorite yarns, sky's the limit. So please join us for that. Happy knitting, happy February, and I'll see you really soon. Thanks. Bye.